About today is the initial buyer meeting, and some people call it a consultation. And one of the things that we want to talk about is the idea that this, for some of you, isn't even something that's part of your process. Some of you might just get a lead and meet somebody at a house, and maybe you kind of haphazardly have a buyer consultation there. And then, of course, others of you, that's not the case. You have a whole process. So regardless of where you're at in that discussion, we really advocate the purposefulness of a buyer consultation, just like a listing presentation. You want to have a process to it. You want to have a purpose. And there are definitely specific ideas and things that we feel like need to be covered in that buyer meeting. Kevin, you want to add anything to that?
I will say this, and I was telling this to Nicole and Rick this morning. I did a buyer consultation yesterday. I thought this is perfect before we go through with another Flip Academy that I was trying to get on. If I miss this, is that it's really important that you follow this exactly, no matter how many times you've done it or how well you know the potential buyer. Because it really does, it says to them, I have a process that I follow. And the other thing that does, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the class, is it starts to really form some sort of boundaries, to be quite honest with your clients, and you're able to say, this is how I work. And that helps to set the path for the way that you walk through it. And I will tell you this, clients really appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the ambiguity out of the process. We're going to answer a lot of questions that sometimes agents assume clients already know. So we want to make sure that we're uncovering that. But the idea of having a process for every single thing that you do goes right to what we're talking about in your ultimate goal of being really responsible for three things: client management, negotiating deals, and managing your team. Having systems and processes in place for everything that you do will help you streamline your business. It makes your clients feel like they know what's going on, and that you know that they know what's going on, and that you are more efficient with your time and with your client's experience. And all these things are leading to the two main things, which are that you have control over your time, that you're not working 70 hours a week, and that you are selling as many houses as you want, right? There's really no limit to that, because there's a lot of leverage activity here. All of that is to say, this kind of process, this is the kind of thing that we want to make sure that you're implementing. So enough about that, unless I've triggered anything else for you, Kevin.
Nope, let's dive in.
So the initial buyers meeting, the first thing we want to do is just have those kind of light questions that are rapport building questions. So whether you were referred to this person, and you can talk about some interaction between your commonality with that person. How do you know them? Where did you meet them? I like that person. Don't you like them too? That kind of thing. Have those kind of questions. Or maybe you got them from a Zillow lead or a sign call or whatever it is. The first questions we want to start with are just those kind of light rapport questions that all of us should be good at. If you feel like you're not good at that, then spend time being purposeful about coming up with a few open-ended questions that allow for that kind of conversation.
A really good tip, and something that we use a lot, is if you do you always want the client to be talking. You want to learn about them. So when they make a point of, I live in Lake Tahoe, for instance, a follow-up is, tell me more about that. And using that, tell me more about that, really puts the conversation back on them to indeed tell you more. And it's an open-ended question that will keep that conversation going. So you constantly, in order to build comfort and to make them, your client or anybody that you're talking to, feel good about themselves, using the tell me more about that question can really help that conversation flow.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're going to see throughout this process is, and really this should be something that is a common theme, is curiosity. Cultivate a natural curiosity for yourself about your clients, about the other agent, about, I mean, I'm going off topic here a little bit about, but the more you can be curious about circumstances, why people make decisions, answers that they have to your questions, the more you'll feel comfortable and they will feel comfortable about the process. One of the things it talks about in Ninja is time of possession. And it's super common for agents to just go on and on about themselves. And I'm the worst offender, so I'm not at all saying, but
Rick, tell me more about that.
So, but try to fight that off and be curious about them. Talk about them. Okay. So then the next thing is getting into what we call the research questions, right? And what we're talking about here is, let's not make assumptions to what people already know about the process or what we know about them. Kevin, you have any more?
Yeah, that's right. So this is where we really want to get into the information that we need to know in order to move forward with this person. And it's the types of things of why are you moving? What's making you make this move, and really getting into the idea of what it is that they're looking for, and why, or not what they're looking for, but why they're moving. The research questions allow us as agents to really dig down into the reason for this, and we're going to get into some other questions that help us really dig out the reason. The more information that we can get in this meeting, the easier it's going to be to understand what the buyer is looking for and to really get them into the right place. And they're included in the whole process. And through the process, we're going to keep checking in with them. Is everything going okay? Is this working the way you wanted it to? And that's just going to allow us to shine as agents and really get them into the place that they want to be. The other thing is, don't make any assumptions about what people know. Somebody, maybe this is the 5th house they've purchased. And you can say, do you know the process? And they say yes. Well, the thing is, for those of us that are in California, we actually have a new contract that is just a month old. So it's one of these things where things are constantly changing, and it's important to go through the process with them again, even if they have been through it just a year or two ago.
Yeah, if we go back to the questions too, Kevin, we want to try and have some specific open-ended question. And I think, are we going to have something? I don't remember, but I think we were going to have some specific questions that they could download later, correct?
That's right.
But some of them are, for example, what is your current living situation? Or what's the driving force behind this purchase, right? These are open-ended questions that start a conversation that are ideally not yes/no questions, that really start to help you establish what it is that's important to them. Now, this is really important. We really want to know, what is the driving force? What is it going to be like when they get to their new house? And the reason that we want to know kind of their big why is that we all know that during a transaction, quite often there's a sticking point. There's something that doesn't quite go right. Maybe it's in the inspection period. There's a water heater that needs to be replaced. They feel like it's the seller's responsibility, and they get all wrapped around the axle about this $1,500 thing, when they lose sight of their bigger goal. And if we don't know what their bigger goal is, right? If we haven't figured out, like, for example, that we know that if we can help them move to this area, that their commute time is going to be cut in half. And if that commute time is cut in half, that's going to mean an extra hour and a half of family time for them every single day, and how great that's going to be able to spend more time with their kids, right? What their big why is. If we don't know what that is, we're not going to be able to push that button and help them realize that while it's a bummer about the $1,500 hot water heater, and we do want to help them negotiate that we don't want to lose the deal and not be able to get them what they really want, which is to be able to have an hour and a half with their family more every night, or whatever that why is, if that makes sense. So that's what we're really trying to get at here with these research questions. We all know that they can talk about, I want an island kitchen, I want a view, I want, a tree with a swing in the front or whatever. Those things are going to unfold as you show them houses. But the big why behind that is what we're really trying to get to.
That's right. Another really good question is there anything about the buying process that you're concerned about? And so again, we're covering the whole thing, and that's where we're able to uncover what this process, the fears that they might have about the process. And if we explain exactly what it's going to be like, then we can kind of set their mind at ease about what the process is, because we've started the whole search, or the whole buying process with, this is the way it's going to look, and identifying those issues that they might have, their concerns.
Yeah, exactly. And while you may not be able to, maybe we can, make their fears go away by answering some questions. Or you can at least be aware that this is something that this person tends to be worried about, so that as these things might come up, you can go, I know this is something that has concerned you in the past. Here's how we're going to address it, or whatever it is.
This is also a really good place in our research when we start talking about this is where we really determine if you are a first-time buyer or if you've purchased in the past. And it doesn't really matter which one they are, but it allows us to understand that we may have to explain a little bit more to a first-time buyer than one that has purchased many times. And it goes back to that idea of the process. If they were working with a different agent, it was a different process. And the questions that we can ask in that part are, what was that process like? Very easy. Did you have any issues with that buying process? Here's a great ninja saying that I love. If you could wave a magic wand and the process went exactly as you wanted it to go, what would that look like? And as they start talking about it, they're going to identify their pain points, the way they want it to work. And we have to, in the best way that we can, allow the transaction to go that way.
Exactly. They're going to map out for you exactly how they want it to go. And you're going to either know that you can do that, or if there's something in there that they say that can't be done, you'll be able to start to manage that expectation the right way. And I love the magic wand, by the way. The magic wand, I used it all the time, not just in a buyer's presentation, but just in life in general, because what it does is it takes the how out of the situation, and it gets you to what is it that somebody really, really wants. And then you can figure out how later. But sometimes people won't tell you what they want because the how gets in the way of that conversation. And so that's why the magic wand is so magic.
That's right.
Okay. Did we cover the research questions there, Kevin? Are you ready to move to the next thing?
I think we are. Okay. So the buyer package is the next piece. And this is something that we are able to put in front of the client that just gives them some more information. And the pieces that I would include in mine would be a copy of the contract, so that they're able to look at it and understand it before we find a property, and they at least have seen what is entailed in putting a contract together. I put a little bit in about me and my company, a little fluff piece that gives them kind of what I'm about, how long I've been in the business, maybe some of the homes that I've sold, something about my company. And then I would also include the buyer representation agreement. And I know that this form is something, it used to be called the buyer broker agreement in California. It's now called the buyer representation agreement. And I know that people are kind of 50-50 on using that form. And as I look at it, I think it really takes away a lot of the questions that a buyer would have. And it also makes me feel like I am working with somebody that's committed to me. So I really am not opposed to using that form. It is an optional form, and it really depends on how you use it. But I think that it can be a really good tool as part of the initial buyer process.
Yeah, if we go back, well, first of all, I agree. The buyer broker agreement, if you go through it, it helps the buyer understand what you're responsible for and what you're going to do for them. And it also gives you an opportunity to get their commitment level for you. If somebody's not willing to sign a buyer broker agreement, I want to be curious, right? I don't want to be defensive, but I want to be curious. What is it about this that makes you feel uncomfortable? Because that's something that you would want to know. Because it's really not something that it's not somebody you would want to work with if they weren't willing to sign that agreement. And I totally get that. A lot of people don't use it at all, and so it feels uncomfortable. But it's something to consider to adding to your process if you don't use it. Going back to the purchase contract, having that part of the buyer package, a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, don't know when they say we made an offer, there's an offer. They've never even seen a contract. All they think is, how many times has this happened to you with the first time home buyer? They go, hey, we want to make an offer. Great. Okay, then we'll talk about it. And then they're like, hey, did we make that offer? No, we didn't make the offer. We have to write it. It's a whole contract. We have to write it all down. And so we want to show them this is what the offer looks like. It's this contract, and it's actually, they don't need to know that it's new, but going through that first page of here's all the factors that go into writing an offer. It's not just the price. And talking, show off a little bit about your expertise in terms of why you are better at getting offers accepted, because you're looking at all these factors, and you're going to find out from the agent on the listing side what's important to the seller and how you can help them navigate through the process of a multiple offer versus a house that's been on the market for a while. Give yourself a little bit of an opportunity to talk about is going to happen for them in the process of using that form. I think that's a really important part of that process.
Agreed.
Okay. So let's talk about the sources for the search. And again, this is another opportunity for us to talk about the process, but also kind of clear out some of the assumptions that are made and some of the things that people are doing. Nowadays with the internet, and I say nowadays, the internet's 25 years old, but the buyer process is not what it was, 25, 30 years ago. It's completely transparent. And then we as agents sometimes just assume that they being the civilian, the client, kind of knows how to navigate that. So we want to go through that process. It's not about people not using, some of those syndicated sites or anything, but it's helping them understand the difference between those and what we bring to the table is right. Right, Kevin?
That's absolutely right. In the consultation I had yesterday, I said, have you been looking at properties yet? And the client said, yes, I've been on Redfin and Zillow. And so it's really important for us to let them know what the multiple listing service is. There are a number of cities that new construction is not on MLS. So we want to let them know that we're going to look at those. We're able to know, or we're able to see for sale by owner properties, off-market properties. For some people work for companies where properties that are coming soon are published to the company. So it really is important for us to tell the buyer that it's not just on these syndicated sites that we're going to find the properties, but we are looking at a whole swath of things that are going to help us find the home. And I think that gives a value to us that we have access to things that not everybody does. And I think it's important to make that fact with our potential buyer.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you are covering a fear that they might have, which is they're FOMO, right? They're going to miss out on something. And so you want to show them, these are my processes. So I make sure that I'm hearing about all the things. And you won't be able to get this by just looking at a syndicated website. Now, some areas, National Association of Realtors, blocked some ways of having off market and things like that. Some areas that's not the case. So what we're suggesting is whatever's appropriate and legal in your area is how you want to present that. The other thing is there's some websites that, the stuff that they post isn't totally accurate. Like, for example, not to call out Zillow, but I'm going to, they have these pre-foreclosures, which is misleading to the buyers. And I just preemptively have that conversation about pre-foreclosures and what that really means. And it's really not something that they should be looking at as if it's available to them. The other thing is, if you can do these you can do these buyer consultations in an office. We didn't talk about this at the beginning, but it can be an office, it could be at a coffee store, but also Zoom. Since the pandemic, we've been doing ours on Zoom, and honestly, I think it's a great way to do it because it allows me to share the screen and at this point actually show them, go on the MLS and look at how to look at properties, what we're looking for in that. And even just understanding active, contingent, pending, and so forth. These are all things that you're getting ahead of the game on for them to enjoy the process.
That's right. So this question is a great one. So this is just a question just to really figure out where they are in terms of their readiness, or at least their desire to make this purchase. And it's on a scale from 1 to 10. With 10, I found the house and I want to put in an offer today, to I'm just getting started, being at the low end. Where do you find yourself on this scale? And so that allows you to say, okay, if they're an 8 or a 9, then we need to get moving here and make sure that their finances are in place, and that they're ready to go. So it gives you a feeling of how hot of a buyer they really are, and it's important to determine that in this consultation.
Exactly. Now, this is kind of a fun exercise. Some of you know about it, some of you don't. But if there's more than one buyer, you give them a piece of paper if you're in your office, or ask them if you're on Zoom. Hey, can each of you take a minute and write down the 3 most important things that you want in the next home that you purchase, and then they each share them. And if there is some discrepancies or whatever, this is a great opportunity. I mean, you want to kind of make it fun, but it's a great opportunity to uncover what we all know can be challenging, which is you're trying to get 2 different individuals on the same page about the home that they're buying. And sometimes, we get into the role of being counselor, right? So if we can get ahead of that by knowing what the differences are and helping them understand each other, that's great. So this is another opportunity for, tell me more. What is it about that island, that kitchen island, that is so important to you? What is it about privacy that's so important to you? Whatever their 3 things are, we want to, have that conversation. Better for you to understand, but also for them to understand each other, because often the 3 things don't line up at all, and they haven't even had that conversation with each other, right, Kevin?
That's exactly right. And what the next slide is talking about is that idea of what versus why, or feature versus benefit. And the idea is, I say that I want to have a kitchen island, and that's the most important thing to me. And getting into why is that, well, the thing is, I want to be able to have everybody sitting around one area when we're like playing games, or making a family meal or whatever. And getting to why it is that they want that is going to change the what. So there may be something else that we can do that's going to give us that same feeling, but it doesn't have to be an island in the kitchen. So the whole idea is finding out, why is that thing important to you on your list? And when you understand the why, then you're able to make an adjustment in thinking about what it is really specifically that they're looking for. So there is psychology in this as well.
Exactly. Now, we also obviously want to be finding out, how are they going to buy this house? Is it cash? Is it a loan? Do you have to sell a house? These are obvious questions, but sometimes we don't think to ask and beforehand. Remember, what we want to be putting ourselves in a position is that when they do go out and find that place, that we're not running around scrambling to try and figure out, how are we going to make this happen? That shortly after this buyer consultation, you've got all the things that you need in line, or you are starting the process of figuring out what are the ducks that need to be in a row, so that they are ready to write an offer, rather than a fire drill at the end.
So now we're at the point that we can talk about some of the specifics. We've learned about perhaps their family or who they're living with. And now we get into the point that we can finally ask the question that so many people ask at the very beginning: how many beds, how many baths, that whole question. So, and getting into that, when they say it's 2 of us, we want 4 bedrooms. As you get into that and talk more about the need for those 4 bedrooms, you may come to find out that one of those bedrooms is, I just need a space for my office. And that for many of us changes the search from a bedroom to a office. So it really is finding out what their needs are, not just 4 beds, 3 baths, things like that, but really understand the why they need those rooms. And it's going to help you in your search to say, hey, they need this office space. Here's this little nook over here off the kitchen that might be perfect for that. So really understanding what they're looking for at the beginning is going to make you a much better agent, and you'll probably find the home a little bit more quickly as well.
Okay, so this is important, and this might be for some of you, you know, a little
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Yeah, exactly. Now the thing is that we're constantly talking to you about from a coaching standpoint, and we are so grateful and appreciative that you guys are willing to, you know, look at things differently, and that you want your businesses to be different. In the context of that, we throughout this process are going to be suggesting things that you go, no, that's not the way I work, or that can't be possible, or whatever. And this might be one of those places. So showing properties and creating boundaries. But the most common thing, and Kevin, tell me if you don't agree with this, but one of the most common things I hear from agents is, I'm available 24/7. And they think that this is so great. And really, I think that the fear is that if they're not available 24/7, that somebody will use somebody else. Does that sound like, is that a common thing that you hear?
I think that is so common. And the thing is, I think you have much more respect from your clients if you give them, I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I'm available for weekends by appointment, and really not thinking that they are just, you're available 24/7. The perception that you're creating is that you don't have a life also. Your life is to be showing properties and writing contracts and those types of things, and it's just not the case. So when you set those boundaries and expectations right at the start, you're going to get some respect from them as well, and that's important.
Yeah, and there may be a nuance to that. Like, for example, if you are currently a single agent without a licensed assistant or a showing partner or a partner, you might say something like, there's 2 nights a week, knowing that everybody is not able to see houses during the day. There's 2 nights a week that I, show houses, and there's 1 weekend day that I work, or something like that. But you want to establish some real boundaries. It's also really important. This is a good opportunity for us to talk about that. You really, 1 day a week should not be working. There should be a day where you do not work every week. At least one. I try and take 2, but ideally at least 1 day a week where you're not returning email. I mean, understanding there may be an actual emergency, but rarely is there a real estate emergency. Sometimes we think it's a real estate emergency, and this is where it becomes managing our clients' expectations and managing their own emotions. Sometimes what they feel like is urgent is actually important, but not urgent, right? And there's a big difference there, and helping people understand that is part of that. So we kind of went off a little bit of a tangent here, but we do want you to start working on the idea of having boundaries when it comes to your time versus your work time.
It's so important. You are a professional. You are a professional realtor, and the idea of you wouldn't go to a store, for instance, or say your doctor. There are office hours. This is when I'm available, and that sort of thing needs to be set.
Exactly. So
I'm not saying that we're all doctors, but we do doctor deals from time to time.
Right. We do save the lives of deals sometimes. So the other thing is, talk about the process around showing properties. So how is it that when they see something they like, how are we going to establish when we're going to see that? What is that going to look like? So, like, for example, for me, my clients, we typically set up a text thread that includes Nicole. It includes however many buyers there are, if it's a husband and wife or just one person. And we use that thread to do the communications around, hey, I just saw this property. Nicole's process is she looks it up to see if there's what kind of urgency is there, an offer date, is there a disclosure packet, yada, yada. And then we set it up from there. So, but the point is, have some kind of process around showings, so that what they're not doing is on Saturday morning kind of scrolling through the listings and calling you going, hey, at 9 o'clock, hey, there's 2 properties we want to see at 11. Does that work for you? Or can we see those, or expecting you to just drop everything you're doing? Like, we want to establish some kind of rules around that, so that you're able to kind of have control over your time as well.
That's right.
Anything you want to add to that, Kevin?
No, the boundaries. I mean, this is one of the most important things that we're trying to develop in Flowcademy, is this idea of definitely taking your professional life and your personal life and bringing them together. And that creates the relationships that we need to be successful. But there have to be boundaries of the expectation of your time, because your time is valuable to you. And we want you to have some sort of balance and be in flow in the way that you are in the world.
Okay, good. So we are at 9:30. We try and make these classes between 15 and 30 minutes. So we're right at that point. What are the roadblocks? I'll tell you, I think that to me, the biggest roadblocks, and we're going to open this up for questions, and also you can share with us the things that you don't like about what we said that might be the roadblocks as well. But it's going to be, this is different. This is not the way I've always done it. I'm uncomfortable with this, and you're going to have reasons that make sense to you that are the big whys. And I just want to assure you that these things that we're talking about are things that we do, that we coach our other students on, that we've coached people on, that is our actual experience. And so I want to continue to encourage you to I saw on somebody's Daily Navigator yesterday, living on the edge of your comfort zone, right? I think that that's a great thing to be thinking about. You